for having us here. So as Eric mentioned, I'm going to be talking about one of our other products at Design Interactive called Augmentor or Augmentor Defense. Augmentor Defense is our DoD-specific instantiation of Augmentor that's been designed for some specific use cases that I'll talk through today. So you had the opportunity to hear from Audrey earlier about Imitate. And Augmentor is really focused on comparing and preserving and transferring expert knowledge from maintainers and from people who have done these on-the-job processes for their whole lives or for a number of years to junior maintainers. So a quick overview of what I'm going to talk through today. I'll give you a little bit of background into why we developed this product in the first place, then a bit of an overview into the solution itself, some of the things that it includes, some of the things you can see if you join us at the booth, as we're all giving plugs for. And then I'll talk a little bit about an enabling process that we've built into our product called Extract. So Extract is really the way that we can guarantee you that we get all of that expert knowledge from your experts or master maintainers and transfer it into our tool so that junior maintainers can use it. Then we'll talk about some next steps, things that we have in flight right now with some active SBIR or SBIR efforts. And then we'll do a brief demonstration at the end. Okay, so let's talk about why this product exists in the first place. So let's talk about the readiness reality. So when it comes to any area in the DoD, making sure that we are ready to fly, fight, and win at any time to be mission ready is a key component. And maintaining aircraft is a key way to make sure that we can achieve that level of readiness. So when we are talking about maintaining aircraft specifically within the Air Force, there's been some challenges with that in the last couple of years specifically. There was a big push in 2018 to actually increase the readiness of some key aircraft within the Air Force. And one of the things that was kind of contributing to that is the fact that they had a shortage of maintainers from around the years of like 2014 to 2018. So what happened, of course, was a hiring boom. We don't have enough maintainers. We have to hire more maintainers. And so it's great that we've closed that gap. But now what we're left with is a little bit of a lopsided career field. So now we have an abundance of these 5- and 7-level maintainers, these journeymen and craftsmen, and we have a shortage of those, we have an abundance of 3-level maintainers, the apprentices, and a shortage of the 5- and 7-level maintainers. So really the need is to make sure that we can accelerate the proficiency of junior maintainers to perform more like expert maintainers. And that's really the key area that we're trying to solve with our Augmentor Defense product. And this is not an issue that's isolated to the Air Force. We've actually had very similar problems within the CVN 78 community, within the Navy, which is one of our other partnership areas. We started, as Eric mentioned, in commercial trucking, where we had retiring experts who were taking all their knowledge with them, and we needed a way to preserve and transfer that expert knowledge. So that's the first key there. We need to make sure that we consistently transfer knowledge from our expert maintainers to our junior maintainers. We also have to make sure that that knowledge transfer is at the right time, in the right format, with the right methodology. So that training needs to make sure that it is applicable to the actual maintainer in the correct format. And then finally, we have to make sure that it's at the points of need. So I know a lot of people in this room are focused at the Air University side on the classroom-based training. So what we're doing with our Augmentor Defense product is really looking both at classroom-based capabilities as well as things that can be used on the flight line, things that can be used directly at the point of need where these maintainers are carrying out these tasks. So I think Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson said it wonderfully, that readiness is first and foremost about training people. So a bit of an overview of how Augmentor Defense solves these problems. It was created specifically to address these needs and challenges within the training community. It's an augmented reality tool. So I think, I know Christina talked a little bit about augmented reality, and you've heard a bit about virtual reality. So this is a HoloLens 1. These are mixed reality goggles that you can wear on your head. We utilize this tool along with a web-based tool in order to capture our expert knowledge and disseminate it to our maintainers. So this AR authoring tool is specifically designed to preserve and transfer expert knowledge. So it meets that first bullet by consistent transfer of that information using our extract knowledge elicitation process, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then it allows us to have the right training at the right time and the right method, because the information that we gather from our experts can be used in a variety of ways. We provide you with a robust content library that is through this knowledge elicitation process that we've captured from our experts that can be used any way you desire to use it. So pictures, videos, notes that come directly from our experts about the things that they know how to do really, really, really well. We have those contained within our tool so they can be used in any of the training creation methodologies that you currently have. But they can also be used immediately within our tool, no software developers required, to create a job performance aid for our maintainers. It can be used directly as operational support or as refresher training. And it's at the point of need because we've tested it in a variety of locations. So as I mentioned, we started in the commercial trucking industry. We started with testing in motor pool type environments. We've also tested at Travis Air Force Base. We actually spent a week on C-5s over there. So we've tested on the biggest aircraft in the fleet. We've tested directly on the CVN-78, the new naval aircraft carrier. Well, there's now a 79, but it was new up until about a year ago. So it can be used really in a variety of environments. So with Augmentor Defense, it really enables this holistic knowledge transfer from our experts to our junior maintainers. And it does that in a way that increases readiness because it can be automatically used by those junior maintainers, those 3-level maintainers who we really want to accelerate their proficiency. So this kind of graph on the side here, I'm going to see if the laser pointer works. It does. How exciting is that? Kind of shows the process of how information goes through our system. We start by having our SMEs or our experts go through the extract knowledge elicitation process. That information is captured, packaged up, and then it can go through a quality review process. This quality review process makes sure that the information captured from our experts complies with all of the wonderful things that are in the technical manuals, all of the safety regulations and compliant pieces that are necessary within an organization like the Air Force. And then finally, that content can be used, as I mentioned, in a variety of ways. It can be used immediately as a job aid by junior maintainers. They can take that HoloLens with them, stick it on their head, and go out and actually perform their task while having the expert standing over their shoulder, because all the information that's been captured from the expert maintainer is visible in their actual physical environment. So this is things like pictures, videos, voice notes, text notes that are captured in our web portal. So it's all visible in their physical environment so they can actually conduct this process or practice this process with that information from the expert. And then, as I mentioned, it can be used for training as well. So we've actually used the information we capture from Extract to create IMI Level 4 immersive training scenarios in augmented reality. And we know that we're actually really good at doing that with the information we capture through Extract because we based everything in Extract on scientific foundations. So what we did is we said, we know that not all trainees are created equal, not all maintainers are created equal, right? There's different levels of proficiency, and they might be proficient at different tasks. You all know that, I would imagine, being in the education space here, in the training and education space. So what we did is we took that pedagogical framework and we expanded it to 5 different layers of proficiency and asked the question, how do we train effectively across 5 layers of proficiency in extended reality? So not necessarily with our normal computer-based training or with our PowerPoint-based presentations, but what are the effective strategies and methods and information that needs to be presented within extended reality at each of these layers of proficiency? So we figured out what that piece of it is. Then we reverse engineered that and said, okay, if this is the information we need to train at each of those proficiencies, how do we get that information? How do we make sure that we have enough information from our experts to train at those levels of proficiency? And so our extract and knowledge elicitation process, which is the next slide that I'll go through in just a minute, talks through how exactly we capture that type of information from our experts to guarantee that the content that we create within Augmentor Defense is applicable and tailorable to those different layers of proficiency. So before I get into talking about some of the details of Extract, just a quick overview of some of the features within Augmentor Defense currently. The main piece is our extract knowledge elicitation process. Again, this is embedded within Augmentor Defense as a key enabling component that allows us to capture really, really good information from the people who have done these jobs for their whole lives. This is immediately usable in a job performance aid, and then it also creates an extensive content library that can be used for a variety of applications, as I mentioned before. And then we have the quality review component, which makes sure that the information that we're disseminating across the enterprise is quality and is of the highest caliber. One piece that I think might be very interesting is our advanced troubleshooting component. Historically speaking, training troubleshooting is a really interesting problem, and also conducting troubleshooting is a very interesting problem. If you looked at a troubleshooting flowchart recently, you've probably noticed it's a lot of diamonds and not a lot of information. And so what that means is that we get a lot of tribal knowledge from the experts who have just learned how to take these flowcharts and conduct their everyday tests that they need to do. They have all of that tribal knowledge stored in their minds when it comes to troubleshooting processes. And how to actually extract that without them getting lost in the web is a really interesting problem that we've solved within Augmentor Defense. So we don't just give our experts Visio and tell them to actually just create whatever they want. We actually walk them through in a very UI, user experience-centric way. We've got some really incredible UI designers on our team who make sure to use those really, really human empowering paradigms to make sure that we're training, or excuse me, that we're gathering the information about advanced troubleshooting in a really, really empowering way. And then finally, not everyone has used augmented reality before, and certainly not everyone has used Augmentor Defense, so we've got user support built into every aspect. I can brag on this because I didn't actually do it. We were actually selected, some of my colleagues' paper about Augmentor Defense's extract process was selected as the best paper for VITSIC 2020 within the emerging concepts area. So we're actually really excited about this process that really empowers us to get the right information that can be used in the classroom and on the flight line. Okay, so I've mentioned extract, I think, about 15 times now, so you might be wondering what exactly makes it tick. So really, it's a process that is designed for us to capture and share expertise. It allows the experts, the SMEs, to go through this process where all of their information is stored within the tool that allows them to pass it down to the next generation. As I mentioned, it's scientifically grounded in that reverse engineering of our pedagogical framework, and also in cognitive theories like Miller's pyramid for training, Sweller's cognitive load theory, the Dreyfus and Dreyfus model of adult skill acquisition. We've used all of this scientific foundation to develop the extract tool to make sure that this process is really empowering and is really grounded in best practices. It's a tailored approach that includes both a web portal and an AR experience. I'll talk about why that's important in just a second. And then finally, it immediately allows us to use this information for job aid and for training integration. Okay, so knowledge elicitation is actually really, really important when it comes to training. In fact, a recent study that was actually done this year found that when mentors are effective at transferring their tacit knowledge, which is that tribal knowledge that you don't even know that you know, to their proteges are 2 to 4 times more likely to achieve success, which means that knowledge elicitation and knowledge transfer is a really, really, really big deal. The problem is that it's really tedious, it's really time-consuming, and historically it's been really difficult. So what we've done is we've taken a meta-analysis of how all of these knowledge elicitation techniques work, what makes them good, what makes them tick, and we've extracted the key components, and put them within our extract process. So these key components are things like structured interviews. So these structured interviews are shown to actually be more effective at eliciting explicit knowledge, which is kind of the tip of the iceberg, the stuff that you know. More effective than giving someone a piece of paper and asking them to write out what they know. A structured interview is a much more effective way of doing that. So within extract, we have used that structured interview technique to actually get at that tip of the iceberg, to get at that explicit knowledge. And so we've introduced some automated structured interviewing based on these types of meta-analyses into our tool. And then we also know that implicit knowledge can actually be garnered through progressive deepening questions. So if you ask a basic question like, how do you conduct this process, that might be better suited to get at some of that implicit information if you follow up with, okay, tell me more about that. Tell me exactly that you mentioned that you have to use a wrench on this. Tell me more about exactly how you turn that, exactly the way that you conduct that process, right? So we've implemented those progressive deepening questions directly into our tool as well. And this allows us to get at that middle of the iceberg, right? The stuff that's just underneath the water. This is knowing how to do what you're going to be doing. And then finally, role-playing and context through these studies on knowledge elicitation that have been going on for years has shown to really be key in activating knowledge and activating tacit knowledge specifically. And tacit knowledge is that tribal knowledge, that stuff that you don't even know that you know. So when it's effective in activating all of that knowledge, we are able to use that within our tool within augmented reality. So you're in this 3D space where you actually conduct your process. So for example, if we're conducting a pre-flight check of the nose landing gear, the expert will actually be at the nose landing gear conducting that pre-flight check with the extract process through Augmentor Defense, talking them through and asking them these questions in this role-playing environment to really get at that bottom of the iceberg, that stuff that's so deep under the water that you don't know unless you're actually going to go do it. So to kind of demystify this a little bit, I was trying to think through an example of how this would work in my own life as I was putting together this presentation, and I thought about a fairly innocuous example of making a cup of tea. If you asked me how to make a cup of tea, at my house, I would probably tell you, you get a tea bag, you boil some water, you put it in a mug, and you let it steep until it's ready. That's the tip of the iceberg knowledge, right? Then if you ask me a couple more questions, like, okay, so you said you boil the water. How do you do that at your house, right? I might say, oh, well, you have to go get some water from the fridge. You have to put it on. You want to do that first because it's the thing that takes the longest, right? Everything else takes a little bit less time. So then that gets at that middle layer of the iceberg, right? Those progressive deepening questions. But if you and I actually went to my house and we made a cup of tea together, what I would realize is that you can't actually use my kettle to get water out of the fridge. You have to use a separate cup to get the water out of the fridge and pour it into the kettle because of whoever designed the kettle and the fridge, they are not compatible at all. That's something I wouldn't have thought to tell you if I was not in that physical environment, because it's just something I do so naturally. That's that tacit tribal knowledge that I use every single day that I wouldn't think to tell you unless we were in the physical environment. So that's a very innocuous example of making tea. Imagine that multiplied by hundreds for our maintainers who have been doing complicated processes for years and years. Imagine the power of getting that information, that tacit knowledge from them, storing it in a way that can be given to the next generation. So just to quickly go through the process, we take a two-pronged approach in the extract process within Augmentor Defense. So we go first within the web portal where they answer some basic probing questions and basically give the steps, get at some of that explicit knowledge and a little bit of that implicit knowledge. Then we go to a web portal, then we go to the AR application where we actually do the process in the operational environment, which really is what activates that memory recall, really gets at understanding all of that tacit knowledge. So we've captured all of the information, now we have to actually do something with it. So the easiest way to use the information directly within our tool, no software developers required, is using our job performance aid. So you can use it directly within Augmentor Defense. So this 3-level maintainer that we talked about at the very beginning can go into Augmentor Defense, get the information that they need either on the web portal or in a headset. So in our web portal, you're able to see the pictures, the videos, the media that's been captured by the expert in kind of a easy content package that almost acts as a job training aid or refresher training. So if it's the day or two before they need to conduct the process, they can go in, look at that information, and then they can send it to their HoloLens device, put their HoloLens on, and be in that 3-dimensional space where they're actually conducting the process with the expert looking over their shoulder with all of that information. So those tips, those tricks, all that tacit information that the expert didn't even know that they know. Now our junior maintainer has that at their fingertips along with all of the information that they had coming into it. So that's the product kind of as it stands right now. That's what Augmentor Defense does. We actually have some active SBIR phase 1s and phase 2s that are expanding some of these features. Some of those things include classroom AR. That might be really interesting to some of you in here who are more on that instructor classroom-based side. So right now, Augmentor Defense supports a one-to-one capability. So we've got a junior maintainer who can go into the headset, see the expert captured information. What we're doing with Classroom AR is supporting a one-to-many capability. So now we can have an instructor who is walking through that expert-authored procedure, or they can author a procedure themselves through extract. They can walk through that information, directly within Augmentor Defense, while that's being streamed to students who don't have to be co-located. They could be in the same physical brick and mortar classroom, or they could be halfway across the world, as long as they're on time for class, right? And so this way, that augmented content can be streamed to an entire classroom of students. That really kind of supports this see one, do one, teach one paradigm. So we are able to see one through this classroom AR tool. You're able to do one through our Augmentor Defense Job Performance Aid. And then we have a remote collaboration aspect as well that allows you to teach that information back to an instructor using, for example, like our Imitate tool, so that you can actually support this holistic learning of see one, teach one, see one, do one, teach one. We're also working on embedded training scenarios. As I mentioned, you've got a robust content library of information captured from those experts to be used however you desire. Right now, we don't have the capability to author robust formative evaluations, so knowledge checks, that sort of thing, but we actually have some really promising prototypes built of that to be able to create those assessment level metrics directly within Augmentor Defense. And then we're taking that even a step further with one of our other active efforts. We're taking two-dimensional video and two-dimensional training content and automatically translating it into three-dimensional training content. So this is a really exciting really exciting effort where we can take existing media that's either captured through Augmentor Defense or that you have already on hand, and we can create immersive environments with that in very, very little development time without software developers involved. It would be directly by content creators. So we're also, with that, as we're moving more into this training space within Augmentor Defense, XAPI integration is a huge deal to make sure that we can integrate with a variety of different LMS systems. A couple things that I think will be very interesting, especially with the video demonstration I'm about to show, are these two pieces down here. So real-time inspection authoring and the AI-enhanced aircraft historical record repository. So we're doing some work with NavAir right now, where we have these guides through Augmentor Defense that have been captured by our experts, and now we're asking the question, what if our junior maintainers or what if our technicians were able to capture their results as they're actually conducting these inspections, right? As they're actually conducting these inspections, we can capture their results, put them in this library of aircraft historical records, and then use AI to actually predict where anomalies are most likely to be found. We're using non-destructive inspection as our use case for this, so you'll actually see a video about that in a minute. So non-destructive inspections right now are very paper-based, so we're giving them the ability to actually log those inspections in real time using the power of AR, using the power of telestrations, using the power of video capture, picture capture, and 3D spatialized environments to real-time log inspections. And then finally, the last capability that we're working is a digital twin integration. Right now, we've got expert content that is feeding into what the trainee or the junior maintainer can see and use. What we want to do is integrate sensor data and integrate system data into that same picture. And so that way, we've got that two-pronged approach, both the system information and the expert information, really empowering our maintainers as they're conducting their jobs. So this next slide is going to start playing a video immediately. This is actually one of our active efforts that I mentioned that uses Augmentor Defense's baseline and adds that real-time inspection logging. So because we have such a robust architecture, we have a modular framework where we can pick and choose these features that are most interesting to you, and we can rapidly prototype and rapidly iterate on what it is exactly that we need to meet specific use cases. So this video you're going to see is meeting the non-destructive inspection use case, and it's called Artisan. It's a project that we're doing within Augmentor Defense.
Non-destructive inspections are an essential component to aircraft readiness and require the utmost precision and accuracy. Currently, inspection technicians rely on paper-based manuals to complete their highly technical work. They deserve a job performance aid as sophisticated as their inspection methods. Artisan, is a HoloLens 2 based augmented reality tool that will take NDI into the 22nd century. Starting from the robust foundation of DI's Augmentor defense, Artisan is redesigned with the specific needs of NDI techs in mind. Technicians simply scan their aircraft's spatial marker to begin seeing their expert-crafted procedure in AR. Tips and tricks elicited from experts through Extract's learning science-based probing questions provide novice techs with information usually learned through years of on-the-job experience. Empowered by historical inspection data, AI predictions give techs a heads up on where anomalies are likely to be found. Contextually relevant procedures show the tech where and how to complete each step. Using the HoloLens 2's seamless hand tracking and intuitive gestures, techs can digitally mark around the location of each defect. After marking the area, the tech captures an image of their work to add to the historical record of the aircraft.
Capture.
The updated record is submitted to the Augmentor Defense web portal for further analysis and AI-aided forecasting. Artisan, the job performance aid of the future.
So this robust modular framework that we have in Augmentor Defense allows us to meet these new use cases very quickly. In fact, we did about 3 or 4 months of research in order to make sure that we can actually empower these users in these new spaces. So that's all that I have for you today. Thank you. Again, my name is Karis, and I'm with Design Interactive and Augmentor Defense. You can reach us out in the lobby to connect and talk more. I'm happy to give you a demonstration as well. Thank you.